Hello. We're looking at how to web scrape a site called food.com. It's got 500k recipes, 500,000 recipes. I'm thinking potentially it might be a job for the Raspberry Pi. I'll just set it running and leave it for hours or days. I want to scrape information linked from the recipes on the ingredients section. So let's have a look. Food.com and recipes, recommended. Let's see if there's some sort of larger list. Popular, let's go for healthy. And here we go. So 10 for 2, and it's got load more. And how many do we get from there? Another 10, I'm guessing. It keeps going. So infinite scroll. That's okay. Lots of banana bread. Right. It's going on and on and on. And as you can see here, PN equals 10. If I scroll some more, PN equals 11. And what's coming next? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, there's no end to it, 17, 18, 19, okay, we can deal with that. Let's pick one at random. And we can see it's not loaded the full recipe, which is a pity because that would have been rather easy, wouldn't it? So let's disable JavaScript and we've not got very much there at all, have we? Re-enable it. Click to see full recipe. So let's do an inspect element on the recipe part and then go to network, and we want to be looking at a XHR, and let's do a reload. And we're going to be looking for API, which, here we go. That looks like the API request for the recipe information. So that is what we are interested in. Just expand that. I'm just going to okay. That appears to be taking us to some kind of comments section, which is not strictly what we want. We want the recipe, the full recipe. So I'm just going to, let's just open up Notepad and while we're here, just make a note of that and just put hashtag this shows the comments. No, that's got recipes 30. That's probably the recipe ID. We want page number 1. Right. Let's go back, see what else we can find. Okay, so we know we're going to have some fun looking for the recipe or loading the full recipe. So let's just finish off with the pagination, and if you see as I'm scrolling down, if I just go one or two more scrolls, there you see page 6. Just scroll a bit more, page 7. So what I'm going to do is gather that, if it will let me, copy, okay, so there we see it's actually already broken down for us, so that actually could be quite useful. So page 7, but I'm just going to scroll one more, and let's get page 8. There we go. And just we will just confirm that the PN is the only bit that changes, and collection 17, that's probably the healthy eating, yeah, healthy eating. Okay, so 8, 7, so we can progress through our pages as we scrape from 1 up to until next page equals none, well, that kind of thing. So we've got we can handle the pagination already just from what we found here. If I view page source, Control F, JSON crops up here twice. So once it's with application/LD, and the next time it is JSON LD, so that is just a key, it's not actually an actual tag. So if we go back up to the first one, and there it is. What I'm thinking of doing is putting in my URL into Scrapy shell, which I have running. Again, this is on the activity feed. If I remove, let's just remove the activity feed from the URL. Okay, so let's start with that. So I'm going to fetch that in Scrapy. Fetch. I haven't checked if my network connection's running, but I think it is on my VM. Yeah, good. So we've got a 200 response, which is what we want, and then we want to let's just see the response. Response.text. Okay, good. Let's view the JSON object. So if you saw my previous video, I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did there. So I'm going to do quote / / I need an XPath, it's the XPath. So res equals, I'm going to do this all on Scrapy shell. So response.xpath, 2 quotes, script at type equals application / LD plus JSON. So everything in the, sorry, typo, everything in the square brackets is what's called the predicate, which is a familiar format really. It's the tag type, which is script, the class name or the ID, or here we're using type because we're searching for JSON object, and then we do /. I'm just going to look for some text. And have I got my quotes right? Yeah. Okay, no error. Let's just do the get. Let's see what we've. Oh yeah, print res. Good. Let's have a look through that. So we've got name. That's the name of the recipe, the author. What we're really looking for is the recipe instructions. And we're also looking for the raw ingredients. Can anyone see ingredients? Yes. Recipe ingredient. Is that the complete list? I think it is. Let's check. So I want to be seeing everything for that recipe, not just the bits that you see prior to clicking on see full recipe. Well, I can see already, because you can see 1, 2, 3 ingredients on the page. But here in Scrapy, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have got all of the ingredients, which is fantastic, because it means we don't have to worry about how to handle extracting the information which isn't visible on the screen. So that is very good news. So what next? Let's try and work with this response. So if you're familiar with JSON and changing it to a dictionary, there we see we've got in red just here, we've got 1 curly brace, and down here we've got 2. I don't know if that's a problem or not. Is that just closing from another one? To me that looks like it could be 1 too many. Let's import JSON. So though I'm in Scrapy shell, you can treat it as if you're in Python shell. So import JSON, and we've already got response. ANS equals JSON.loads. I'm going to try and load this response object using JSON. And let's do print. Okay, I think that looks like it's recognizing the keys and the values. So let's try print ANS and pick out a key value. So I'm just going to go in at the deep end and try and print out the instructions. This will either works fantastically, and I think yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's do a bit more, and type text. Let's just try an index. So 4. Type equals 3. Okay, so for each index we're getting little bits of the how-to step. That's fine, we can iterate through that. what I really want to do is get the ingredients. Are they in here? Oh, of course they're not, because I'm looking at recipe instructions. I think it was just called ingredients, wasn't it? It was just recipe ingredients. I'll take off the index on the end. No. I'm doing this from memory. Was it just called ingredients? Nope. Let's just print the answer again. And ingredients, where are they? I could import, let's from pprint import pprint as well. Pprint ans, which is our object which contains the response, and that looks nicer. So recipe instructions, so we are going to have to pick out or iterate through the recipe instructions. Recipe ingredient, okay, print and recipe ingredient. Yes, so I think we're in business. We have now accessed the recipe ingredients, the how-to instructions. We have also identified how to handle the pagination, which we can do by modifying. Let's just test that in Scrapy Shell as well then. So let's just do fetch, paste. This is what we collected earlier, and if you remember in the XHR response in Firefox. So I just want to see if this gives me a 200. Yes. And then next, all I want to do is change that number, which was the page number, PN. It's quite nice that they've called it PN. It's easy for me to pick out. We'll be using urllib.parse on this just to break up the query string. Let's try 6 then. 200. Let's just do view response. We might even be able to see what different recipes we're getting in it. Oh. Always forget to add the text. I don't even need to do view, just do response.text. Right. That is quite a lot to look at, but already I'm seeing recipes. Recipe username, primary photo, holiday cookies, sponsor code, main title, sugar cookie icing. Well, just by modifying that one number here in the page number, we've managed to go off and get a different response, which we could actually just prove it again by changing in the browser as well, couldn't we? So let's just paste that into the browser and see what we get. Oh, okay, that's fine. It looks like we're just getting the comments and the description. Are we actually seeing the actual page? Yeah, we are. There we go. Record URL. So let's go back here. From this URL, which we just modified from 6 to 5, we are able to get this, which is the XML version of the actual page. And this contains the URL to the actual recipe. So if I paste that in, yeah. So I've got the recipe and the comments. The comments are what we were just seeing lots of in the XML. So we just need to do some logic, and we need to just think about how we're going to handle, well, we already know how to handle the next page. The next page logic will be fine, fairly standard for Scrapy. I'm going to use urllib.parse, and then we will be in business, because I think that we can just handle the JSON object as we've just seen. So what we need to do is just fine tune let me go back up. Did that work? Yes. So I'll load my response using json.loads into a variable called ans, then I print it, and we've got a list. So that, we could even index that. Beef, onion, you know what's coming next? I think number 3 might be an egg. Yes. So there we go. What we've done is we've analysed the food.com site so that we can extract healthy recipes, or rather recipes from the healthy section. We know how to handle the AJAX load more, because once we've got the initial URL, the start URL, we can modify the page number, and that will load us, it was 442, wasn't it? It loaded us 10 more recipes each time we scrolled down a little bit more. And from those pages, we know that we can then load the application /LD plus JSON, get it, load it into a variable, import JSON, load the variable into JSON, and then we can pick out the bits we need. Which we don't even need to index it. That will be good enough, I would imagine. If we are creating a CSV, I see no reason why all of that cannot just appear in one cell. We don't want to be creating 10 rows for each recipe, just so that we can load an ingredient onto a unique row. We could add extra columns. We could have an extra 20 columns and just load an ingredient 1, ingredient 2, ingredient 3, ingredient 4. But then we're potentially allocating lots of empty rows if we've only got a recipe with 3 ingredients and we've allocated 20 extra columns. Did I say rows earlier? I don't know. So I think that is good progress. This is how to load JSON from a web page which is using JavaScript and AJAX for load more, for infinite scrolling. So this has been part 1. Part 2 will be where I actually write the Scrapy spider. So I thought I'd do this in 2 parts, because really that's how you need to approach this, you have to really break the back of the understanding the JavaScript, the pagination, the infinite scroll, AJAX and so on. And once you've got those URLs and you understand what your start URL will be, how you're handling the next page, and the key names that you will be using as your selectors, or rather what actual selectors you will be using. It's all about the start URLs and the selectors and the next page, those three things. So signing off here. I hope you've enjoyed this, hope you found this interesting, useful, and yeah, I'll be back soon with part 2.